Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darragh O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello folks, you're listening to the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 2.5 FM, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling. It is Christmas time when you're listening to this, or Christmas Eve, which is wild. I think that really kind of flew in. And we have a very special show for you this week. Before we do that, my name is Darragh, and I'm joined by the one, the only Mr. 1-0, Martin Hardy. How are you, Martin?
I'm in a fine festive form, Darragh. There's a game I used to love. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called Lollipop Chainsaw.
Yes, I do. I know.
Loved it on my old 360. Just a great, ridiculous arcade kind of hack and slash zombie game.
Yes.
And I was sure, because it didn't make a whole pile of money and it wasn't part of a franchise or anything, but they have just re-released and remastered it, and I have been delirious with joy all week. I've just been flat out hacking heads off with a chainsaw, as you do around Christmas.
So, I had a similar situation. With
a game or with hacking heads?
With a game, well, I don't know if obviously your Xbox and Switch, but on the PSN, they brought in this system where you can kind of level up. And I haven't been playing that many games other than Vampire Survivors. And I do blame Vampire Survivors for this actually, because I looked at my Switch Wrapped, and it was
Lord.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, wait
400 hours.
Oh, it was a ridiculous amount of time with Vampire Survivors. But so basically, they're like, right, you're not going to be able to upgrade to level 4. I was like 75 trophies or something away from. I'm like, yeah, you have until the first, and the first to do this, and it's going to be reset, which would have been all the way down. And it's based on your performance, you'll be level 4 at like 2026. I'm like, will I now? So for the past 2 days, I was just hockeying through games, and I got like 126 trophies in 2 days. So yeah, that was take that, PlayStation Network. I didn't get anything. You got like a little imaginary emoticon from it, but look, the moral victory was mine, so totally worth it. But there is a pretty good collection of games on the PlayStation Network now. So I've been going through Astrobots Playroom.
Oh, I've heard it's very good.
It's very good. And then the follow-up to it, I also picked up as well. So the Playroom was with it. When you get the PlayStation 5, it's there. It's a free game. Then the upgraded one now is like a full game, and it's really, really good. Pretty much it plays like Crash Bandicoot. It's like an updated Crash Bandicoot.
Nice.
But yeah, so with that being said, we are going into Christmas. We have, this time of year, usually stuff slows down a little bit, but we have a long list of things to get through here. Like it's wild. I don't know what's going on in the world of wrestling, but
packing it out. You know what it's like?
They didn't get the memo that it's Christmas and nothing happens at Christmas.
But you know what it's like, those long Christmas days where, you know, like everything's great up in the morning, and you know, all the wee kids and cousins and all that are running around, and you get to dinner and everything. I see after the dinner it's a long old day. So I think it's good to have a nice long or a selection of podcasts for people to sit back and listen to when they're laying on the couch digesting.
Well, absolutely. And everyone who's been checking out the podcast as well, or the YouTube, we really do appreciate it. It's been really cool to see. And look, it's the best way to interact with us as well, because we can actually see it underneath the video. So anyone who's checking us out now, happy Christmas, happy holidays, or whatever. We do appreciate it. And if you listen to us on Phoenix as well, I hope you're having a good Christmas Eve. But with that being said, Martin, there was some news this week where I was not happy.
Darragh, I know you weren't, and I really don't want to.
I really wasn't. I'm actually very upset.
But before you get into it, I was thinking what we should do is, do you know the way we're the Wrestling Rewind?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of distinguishes us and sets us apart from other podcasts about a million issues. I was thinking what we should do is we should just suddenly, out of nowhere, drop the wrestling thing and just be about Emily in Paris. Just for no reason, out of the blue, just drop the thing that makes us different and noticeable. What do you think of that?
It's kind of like if you're watching like a wrestling VHS and someone taped over in the middle of it. So it's like you're watching the Royal Rumble from 1999 and bang in the middle of it. It's just like EastEnders.
Complete. Just get rid of the thing that makes you popular. Does it remind you of anything that happened this week?
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. So for anyone that doesn't know, TNA have announced that they're going to get rid of the X Division title.
Lunacy.
I don't know what they're doing. This comes about 5 days removed from bringing back Tessa Blanchard, which we haven't talked about on this show for many reasons. Basically because it's such a crazy thing that happened initially. Long story short, they brought her in, put the belt on her. She wasn't able to travel because of the pandemic, didn't return the belt. And
when you say put the belt on her, they put the
world title on her.
Top
the belt.
Yeah. The belt.
Yeah, like which is still, it was a wild move to do at the time, but it did get a lot of headlines. But this woman, to say she has nuclear heat is putting it extremely mildly. She is, I was thinking about this, she is literally what people think CM Punk was in AEW. She is like that nuclear heat. Like there is no redemption arc, there's no salvation, to the point that people legitimately didn't want her there. And TNA had to hold the information back that she was brought back from the talent. So that's where TNA was at the start of the week. And then a couple of days later...
It only escalated.
So right now we have two really bad situations with TNA. We have Tessa Blanchard being back, which, again, nobody's happy about. Genuinely, I haven't heard one person going, "Oh, I can't wait to see her back." No, there's no way. I know Booker T talked about it, and Matt Hardy's weighed in on it too, but and
there's no doubt, like, she was an excellent wrestler. But,
oh yeah, she was a fantastic wrestler, but I mean,
there's just some issues that come up that you can't get around. It's like Marty Scurll. Everyone was on about how he was on the cusp of superstardom, and now he can't get booked anywhere.
Well, I mean, there's not only, not returning the belt, there's the accusations of bullying, there's the accusations of racism. There's I mean, you name it. Like, we could keep going. You name it. She has been accused of it, or it's been confirmed in some way. Basically, she is the...
She was playing... Not what was it? It wasn't Me Too, the wrestling version of it.
Yeah, it was Speaking Out, wasn't it?
Speaking Out, yeah. She was playing Speaking Out bingo.
Yeah.
Every accusation that was going on Speaking Out, she was racking them up.
But see, that's what I'm saying. There's two different sides of it. There's the non-professional stuff, like the personal stuff, but I would categorize all that stuff as personal. And then there's the professional stuff, which would be the backstage politic and the being really hard to work with, the bullying backstage. Basically, again, all the AEW CM Punk stuff would be in another bucket. So she has both of them at the same time. So the only thing she really has going for her are two things: the name and the fact that she is a great wrestler. But what I don't understand is WWE won't touch her, AEW won't touch her, right? Why are TNA doing this again? Like, they got burned once. You think, every time I think TNA are like learning from their mistakes, they go and do it again.
Would it be an issue maybe of the notoriety, like, bringing eyes to the product?
Well, one thing as well, there's also a report that TNA are they're asking talent for pay cuts.
Oh, yeah, that's...
So this was all in the same week, folks. Again, you can check this. Any wrestling site, take your pick, have all reported similar things. So imagine this. Imagine you're a talent, right? You're in AEW. You're in TNA, right? And you didn't go to AEW. You didn't go to WWE when they came calling. You're sticking to TNA, and they announce, right, lads, you're gonna take a pay cut. We're getting rid of the X Division, which is how you've been able to get some TV time, and also how you've been able to elevate yourself. And the majority of the matches that you've probably been doing have been in the X Division. Oh, and by the way, we're bringing back this woman who has been nothing but headaches for everybody. That's a tough pill to swallow, man. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You've been loyal, and you know what? Actually, I'm going to say this now. Rhino left TNA a couple of weeks ago, and nobody knew why.
It was, I read recently that it was over the pay cuts.
Yeah, nobody knew why, and now it's all coming together.
The thing is that even like you can even set aside the issues of Tessa Blanchard, like whatever the personal issues were, whatever the professional issues were, just the fact that they are coming to workers and asking them to take a pay cut at the same time as they're signing somebody to a new contract, like it just doesn't seem like a good way to kind of balance a budget, Like we're going to ask all the, like you say, all the people who have stuck with us when there were options with AEW and with WWE and New Japan and all that. So even setting aside the issues with Tessa Blanchard, just the fact that they are asking people to take cuts on their contracts while handing out new contracts at the same time.
It's so silly.
It just doesn't make sense. Yeah,
it's like we've been giving them praise rightly for their change to doing smaller shows, to pushing the talent.
Man, at the start of the year, we were talking about TNA like it was the second, although probably third, fourth, or fifth coming. But like, whenever they shifted to, they were doing these kind of pay-per-view shows. Like having it as a pay-per-view. Do you remember the likes of like a Snake Eyes and stuff like that?
Even Turning Point last year.
Yeah, and they would film it as a pay-per-view and then break it up. That would be the next 4 weeks of TV or whatever.
Yeah.
Brilliant idea. Like,
with hot international crowds.
And you weren't getting you kind of weren't wearing out the Impact Zone, the same crowd every week, the same. And even just those wee sub names that the shows were getting, like it wasn't like, Impact's on this week. It's like, that TNA Snake Eyes is on this week. I wonder what that's about. Or at the start of this year, they, honest to God, seemed like they were on a serious upswing.
Again, though, like we had then the Jordan Grace thing being in WWE, the Joe Hendry stuff being in WWE. That was all great, but I think once Scott D'Amore was let go. I think that really we're starting to see the impact of it now. No pun intended. Where it's like, right, obviously he had a vision. This was the vision that we were kind of getting, and now we're kind of saying, right, well, he's gone. I know Anthem got a new president. Maybe this could be a result of it. But look, I can understand the pay cuts to an extent, right? Business is hard. TNA isn't funded by a millionaire or billionaire. It has to make money. AEW doesn't have that, so you don't see this, which is a great thing about lads working there. But what really sticks in the craw for me is their fan base, their talent roster has stuck with them through everything, and then they go in and bring in someone who not only wants a lot of money, I'm assuming, but they don't want her there. What is the win here? And then they also take away the X Division, as I said, which is how a lot of these younger guys built their name. If it wasn't for the X Division, there would be no Alex Shelley, there would be no Chris Sabin, there would be no Daniels, there'd be no Kaz. The list, AJ Styles.
But that's even what we were. That's what we were joking about earlier when we were talking about. Let's just change the thing that makes us really popular. Because even more than just making those stars, the X Division was what made TNA stand out. People who didn't watch TNA knew about the X Division. I didn't watch TNA, but I knew about the X Division. I'd heard about the these insane matches and these incredible athletes. And that guy you love from WWE or AEW, yeah, he was actually originally TNA. He was like a big star in the X Division. Like, it's baffling.
Here's the worrying part, right? And again, like, I know I say this a lot about AEW. But it's because I've lived through this, and I've seen this happen again and again and again with TNA, where they build up steam and then spectacularly throw it away. But I will have to say, this is a new one for me, right? This is a new one for me where they throw out the X Division, but it does mirror what's happened before, where TNA would rebrand and lose their identity. And what the worrying part here is that, what are they without the X Division? What are they bringing in Tessa Blanchard? Like, she didn't want to be in the women's division. She wanted to wrestle the men. Cool. But Jordynne Grace is in there redefining the women's division. Why do you need Tessa Blanchard? You don't, the question I have for you, Martin, is what happens? Like, we've seen TNA go from barely survive, and they always barely survive and then tick on and then go, oh, we're TNA again. This is who we are. They just got their identity back. And now it seems like with these 3 or 4 moves, they're no longer TNA. So what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wider question that ties into this, whatever this deal they have with WWE is. I don't even know if that's still going on. I haven't heard much about TNA people on.
Here's the thing, though, right?
WWE lately.
On that point, if WWE are doing that deal, why would you even bother? Like, what if it doesn't? There's no differentiation between them now. Like, if I was Jordynne Grace or Joe Hendry, I'd be looking to move tomorrow.
I'd say they're already gone. Like,
I'd be looking to move tomorrow, because what's the point? Like, if they're hitting the eject button on, like, the 6-sided ring, fair enough, get rid of that. King of the Mountain shouldn't have been got rid of. And like, with every little tick that TNA does, it loses its identity more and more and more, and that's the sad part about this.
And I kind of get the 6-sided ring, because like, there was a practical reason. It was difficult
it really was.
And the wrestlers didn't like it, blah blah blah. But nobody was complaining about the X Division.
No.
But it ties back to that, like what you were saying about the deal with WWE. These are just all little examples of them losing their identity, and I just, like you said, I just don't understand it.
And there's no reason for it.
Having your own identity is what has gotten you this far.
Yeah.
Why are you now dropping that?
It seems that's the TNA loop, and I've often joked for years at this point, when TNA collapses, I'll have to write the book on TNA. And you know what? I mean, I think if anyone looks at that, this is the cycle. TNA get big based on being TNA. They then are at the top of the mountain, or their little mountain, and they're like, oh, this is great. Now let's change everything. Then it collapses. And then they're like, oh, maybe we should go back to what worked. They rise back up again, and the cycle repeats again and again in different, unique ways. Hogan and Bischoff coming in. That was like the big one, right? Dixie Carter losing control of herself completely. Global Force Wrestling, when it was called Impact Wrestling. And now this. It seems like every 4 years, they reach the pinnacle, where everybody's like, oh, come on, they're going to do it. And then they just completely freak out and like, right, let's change everything. And it completely craters. The worrying part about this is now, every time this has happened beforehand, there hasn't been an AEW, right? They've still been the alternative. So here's the worrying part, and genuinely, this is why I'm more concerned about this now than any other time. If TNA go out of business, or sorry, don't go out of business, they hit this crater and nobody watches again because there's no reason to. Everybody's going to watch AEW. or they're just going to go back to WWE. You know, there is a choice now. Every other time this happened, it was WWE or TNA, and that was kind of it. Or you just stop watching. Now it's like, well, you can just watch AEW, you know, and at least, for better or worse, it's AEW. It is what it is. It's its own thing that caters for those specific fans. So you know you were getting into, and WWE is the same. And that's the challenge. You know, they've created an issue that did not exist and made it an existential threat to themselves. TNA, look, if you're listening to this, man, like the top brass there, you've got to change it. I don't know what you're doing, but this will not go well. It will not go well.
What I would say is, if anyone from TNA is genuine listening to this, Darragh saying this from a place of absolute love. Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
The man loves TNA.
But that's the thing. I've said this before, folks. If you've never had an experience in a TNA audience, everyone there is phenomenal. They are the best wrestling fans you'll ever be around. Everyone there has a great time. You know, they're there because they love the product, and not in like a smarky, I hate WWE, I hate AEW. They just love TNA, and that's what differentiates them from everybody else. You can be in there, you can have a conversation, and it's not toxic. I think if you're in a WWE show, they're going to be badmouthing AEW. If you're in an AEW show, they're going to be badmouthing WWE. Blah blah blah. TNA is its own thing, really and truly. So yeah, when I say it does come from a place of love, but at the same time, like they have no idea what they're doing. And it's really, really sad. It's really, really sad. Tessa Blanchard will not be the star that they want. Something will happen. She will leave. And the roster who have stuck by have no reason to stay. And that is truly sad. But the upside is the win for WWE, maybe. Joe Hendry and Jordan Grace will probably go over to WWE relatively soon. And then AEW can pick up some pretty cool stars in that are left over in TNA. But
the other thing about it is
then we're out. Like, but here's the thing: like, is it worth buying? No, the tape library, absolutely. Like, I hate having this conversation, but like TNA, if they are stripping it away, someone can swoop in and buy the tape library, and that's what WWE should maybe do. Go on.
The other thing I was just going to say is that even from the point of view of the workers, of like the actual wrestlers, like it kind of removes. If TNA is not doing well, if it does look like people are fleeing, it kind of removes the leverage they have for like a Joe Hendry or Jordan Grace to walk into WWE and command like a big contract. Yeah,
no, absolutely, like that.
Whereas now they can get them for a steal, because it's like, well, what are you going to do? They're cutting wages back in TNA. Yeah. You know, we'll stick you on a regular NXT contract. You know, so.
That's the thing, you know, and it also the more places that there are for lads to work is never a bad thing. Oh. You know, I mean, like, the Hardys are in the spot that they should be in now before they go back to WWE for their Hall of Fame induction, right? Nick Nemeth has rebuilt his career there. You know, Dolph Ziggler, he's rebuilt his career there. If he had went to AEW, he would have been in a similar thing as Ricochet, wouldn't have got the world title, would have just been a great wrestler among great wrestlers. In TNA, he's got a chance to shine. Like, look at Moose. Moose has been great in every role they put him in. So maybe the problem
is that the latest role they've put him in
is getting rid of the X Division. That's what I'm saying.
Decommissioning the X Division.
They've walked themselves in. But you know what? This is not the first time this has happened. A couple of years ago, one of the British Invasion, his gimmick was he didn't like the flips. So, and he won the X Division title. So every X Division match would have to be like a wrestling match. But he still kept the X Division title. Like, they've put themselves in a corner here where they don't really need to be in.
Yeah. But you can do gimmicks like that with titles. Like, we've seen that. We've seen like where MJF came in and decommissioned the international title and called it the United States title.
Exactly.
You know, that was part of a story. Or we saw Bryan Danielson, you know, have like the vegan hemp belt but you still leave yourself room to go back then. Yeah. Whereas, like, have any of your kind of TNA insiders been able to give you any kind of insight in what is happening?
Here's the thing. I get press releases from TNA every week. I haven't got one in a while, and that's when you know it's bad. When you don't get press releases for a while, you know it's bad.
They've fired the press guy.
No, no. They're scrambling. You know, and that's worrying because like you can kind of predict when it's going to when the way TNA operates. It's been like this for years. But yeah, I'm just looking at that roster now. It is scary. It's scary to see where they're going and what happens next. But we will keep an eye on it, folks. We'll keep going forward. But Tessa Blanchard, God Almighty, I just don't get it. I just don't.
And I'd say, honest to God, hope it works out for them, because the more like successful kind of national, international, big scale wrestling promotions that there are, like, the better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But look, real quick before we go on to our main content, there's been some AEW updates, and
I'm reacting here. I don't know what these are, so.
Yeah, I know. So the main one we've been talking about for a while has been like the smaller shows, and like I've heard some people like badmouth on that online. And look, go for it.
Online, that's kind of
no. Like look,
Tony Khan could cure cancer, and the online trolls would badmouth him for it.
No, well look, they'd be right there because Tony Khan's the problem with AEW. I'll get to that in a second. But the smaller shows, realistically, have been a great move. You're watching any of the recent content, it feels like you're watching a Hive show now. It has that vibe to it where you're like, okay, everyone there wants to be there, they paid to be there, they're interested in the content, and it actually makes it a lot better to watch, right?
It looks better, it sounds better. I honest to God think there's a psychological effect on crowds when they go into a big arena and they see part of it empty.
Yeah, 100%.
It almost 100%. Makes them self-conscious about like getting involved and shouting and screaming and all that. The other thing I found about it is that the fact that the buildings they're going into now are packed out is they're now able to lift the lights. Yeah. So shows don't have that
look dark.
Yeah, they used to have this weird kind of blue tint over them. I don't know if that was how they dimmed out the kind of like the upper seats or whatever. But no, there's only been one so far, and it was already like one of the most electric shows of the year. So I'm delighted with it.
There's no reason to run big arenas. That's one of the things that I don't like about wrestling. They've set up this big arena thing, and it's like, to me, even being at WrestleMania, while it was great, it was also too big. If that makes sense, and I think AEW settling into a nice kind of like niche product, because look, money doesn't matter. They don't need to sell tickets. They could run it.
But here's the thing, even about like money doesn't matter. I mean, they're running the business, so it does matter.
They are running the business, but they're not really running the business.
Like people talk all this stuff.
No, but Martin, what I'm saying to you
is, it's not real. Like,
no, what I'm saying to you is, right, if WWE run the show, they have shareholders to manage, so they have to squeeze everybody for a penny. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what happens. Impact's the same, right? With AEW, that's not really an issue. They've learned this now. They need to focus on filling the arenas that they're able to fill. Like I was saying to you, one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life is when Mick Foley came out in Dublin and during the TNA Dark Days, which looks like we're going back to. And it was the Tree Arena. For anyone who doesn't know, Tree Arena holds, 1,500 people? Give or take? Yeah, about 1,500 people. 15,000 people.
15,000 people. Yeah, I was thinking people. The Tree Arena's big.
15,000 people, sorry. And I've seen it when it was sold out. I went to a comedy show there a couple of weeks ago and I saw it sold out. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Wrestling, usually it's tarped off or something like that, right? And TNA had booked that arena. I've never seen so much tarp in my life. The whole thing was tarped off except for one little tiny corner at ringside. Like, to imagine like a pie, like a sliver of a pie. And that's where the entire crowd was, right? Mick Foley walks out and he just looks. And you could just see the sadness in that man's face. And it will stick.
I used to wrestle in front of 70,000 people.
It will stick with me forever. Forever.
It's such a gamble, though, because
But hold on. But on that point, I will let you go in a second. That point, right, the year before, they had sold out the National Stadium. 900 people, ravenous for TNA. Kurt Angle and AJ Styles in an hour match. One of the best wrestling experiences I've ever had. And it comes to, it's not about money, it's about how you can make the best looking show possible, or the best show possible. WWE have gone the other side because they're going to draw no matter what. They do squeeze you, and you end up stuck in this faceless arena almost. TNA cracked it to an extent, but TNA are doing TNA things. It's cool that AEW are like, okay, let's embrace this. Go for it, Martin. Sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you. I was just saying that Mick Foley would do even these like Japanese deathmatch shows, and there'd be 40,000 people at them, or 20 or 30,000 people at them, but they'd be holding them in like these massive 80,000 seater football stadiums.
Yeah,
and it looked 40,000 people watching. Right, like that's an amazing achievement, but it just looked terrible because
it just looked empty.
Yeah, because of there was so much space. So yeah, look, I think the small arenas they're better as a viewing product. Like it just looks and sounds, everything's better. They're better perception wise because it gives the impression of promotion that's growing. It's like, oh my God, look at that! They've packed, sold out. Like sold out is sold out. Doesn't matter if the building is 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. Sold out looks good,
It's that exclusivity that you want, and I think AEW needs to become that hot ticket again. And look, that's not saying the quality of the product doesn't matter. There's still people that are going to go see AEW. There's still people that's going to go see TNA, but everybody's going to go see WWE. So you can't really compete on that level. And unfortunately,
you say that, but like WWE's the same as any other wrestling promotion. It is. It has its peaks and troughs. Like
no, it does. What I'm saying to you, though,
we're talking a couple of years ago, literally only 5-6 years ago. Like you were talking about Raw being like half the arena tarped off. And
that's true. That's
dead
true.
Silence from the crowds, and I think it's a cyclical thing with wrestling.
The point I was making there was, you can still sell a WWE ticket to anybody, to like the average person, because you know what that is. When you're not WWE, how you get around it is you kind of follow that. Like WWE are going to take that hit anyway, and they will stop doing shows or whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. But when you're a smaller company, instead of trying to compete at that level, you don't have to. TNA learned that lesson way too late. Fair play to Tony Khan. He actually learned that lesson super quick. And it was like, okay, well done. Well, that was great.
What's like the thing I was going to say earlier, and thanks, you reminded me of it there, was that, you don't need to be Coke. Like, Pepsi is still a massive, hugely successful company. Right? It's not as big as Coke, but so what? Like nobody would say Pepsi's a failed company because it's number 2 or number 3 behind,
Well, even Dr. Pepper.
Like there's room.
Yeah, even Dr. Pepper, like people would drink Dr. Pepper because it isn't Coke, because it isn't a cola. And that's kind of like the appeal. I think that's what AEW kind of has to settle into being. Like TNA, that's what they were, but it's if there's one lesson that AEW can learn from TNA, it's this: be happy with what you are. And then and that's it. Because TNA, they get to that point where they're like, lads, we've done it, and they throw it all out.
the thing about AEW is that they now have an annual reminder of what fans want. Right?
Yes.
Every year they come to the C2 Continental Classic, which focuses on in-ring, no interferences, no screwy finishes, none of that. The storyline is that you want to be the best wrestler and win this competition, and they put on the absolute best quality matches in the world, and fans, AEW fans, love it. So every year AEW gets an annual reminder, this is what we want, this is why we watch AEW. So I'm hoping that lesson sticks with them,
That's the thing. And if they can do that, they'll be fine. But look, I do have a quick question, right? So, or some a revelation into a question. I now realize what I don't like about AEW, right? You want to know what it is?
I don't, but go on. We're doing a podcast.
It's Tony Khan. That's it.
See, this baffles me.
No, and I'll tell you why. He just shouldn't be on television. He's
never on television.
Yeah, but he does the media scrums and everything, right? If he was a back, and I've thought about it because the Young Bucks annoy me an awful lot, right? I do like Kenny Omega. I don't like a lot of the roster, but there's a lot there to like, and the stuff that's really good is really good. I love Christian's run. I think that's wonderful. I really enjoyed Dynamite this week, right? But every time I see his stupid face, I'm like, please go away. And I you know what? I wish I never saw his face. I wish he was completely anonymous, and I just didn't know who, because it presents a focal point of things to not like, you know.
But it does. People, you have to go out of your way to see Tony Khan.
He tweets, man. He tweets all the time.
Oh, that's Twitter. Like, Jesus Christ, what do you want the man to do? Like, not like, hey,
just say nothing. No,
no,
just say nothing. But that's it. I can't.
If you can watch all the AEW you like, and you will rarely see Tony Khan, you have to go out of your way to see him. You have to either
the fact that he books it. You have to either
you have to either stay and watch the media scrums like at 6 a.m, or you have to be deliberately following him on Twitter. Like,
I go on my way to not, and then he says something dumb on Twitter. I'm like, oh man, what are you doing? It's just very.
Everyone says something dumb on Twitter.
Well, I'm convinced that's what it's designed
Twitter
for.
is.
To get you fired from your job in 5 years. That's the whole point of Twitter.
It terrifies me.
It really does.
I get that. I'm old enough that I have that Facebook memories thing.
Oh man, yeah.
Occasionally it'll pop up, and here's something you thought was really funny in 2008 when you were
like quick delete.
When you were like 19, delete. And you're like, oh my holy god, delete.
Go back and delete all that. Yeah. No, but look, I know what you're saying is right. It's just, if I'm feeling that, I think he's like a lightning rod. And the thing about it is, because with Vince, you saw Vince the character. Now look, I'm not saying for Vince McMahon at all, but you saw the character, so it was very easy to hate him because he was a character. Turns out that was just him.
We saw the character.
We thought it was a character. That was just him.
But as we discussed on a previous podcast, it was just him out there going,
exactly.
Please, somebody stop me. I can't control myself. This is what I'm really like. This is a cry for help.
It's like he's a genius. Absolutely. A revolutionary. But no, I think that, and a lot of this happened with Dixie Carter as well. You know, there's a lot of overlap between Dixie Carter. And look, I knew Dixie Carter. She was a lovely woman. Anytime I met her, she was super nice. So it's not if they're nice or not. And apparently Tony Khan's the nicest guy in the world. Every time I see his stupid face, I can't listen to him talk. I just have a visceral reaction to Tony Khan. And I don't like his booking style, blah, blah, blah. I will say, as a match guy, as someone who books matches, fantastic. As a talent scout, fantastic. So I just can't get over that. Maybe I'm alone in that. Obviously I'm not alone in that. A lot of people apparently do share this opinion. And when I sat and thought about it, I was like, that's it. So that's how I watch AEW. That's my bias. I try and watch it. When Martin does recommend something, I honestly do go in and watch it because he's rarely wrong. But I think Tony Khan's a bridge too far, man, for a lot of people. You know, it's like, for example, NXT, you hate Shawn Michaels passionately with cause. You'll never like NXT once Shawn Michaels is booking it.
No, I would, if NXT was good, I would watch it. Like,
NXT has its moments.
Like, I have a surprising ability to see past things in wrestling. Like, I'm sitting looking at my Hard Knocks, the best of Chris Benoit DVD right now on my shelf. Like,
I can't do that. Yeah,
I can see past stuff, you know, like, so if it's good, I'll watch it. But the thing with, like, that I don't get with the Tony Khan thing is that in order to see him so much that you're annoyed by him, you have to actively seek him out. You have to go out of your way. The man shows up. The last time he was actually on the show, so if you're watching Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, pay-per-views, whatever, the last time he was actually on the show was either maybe 2 weeks ago, he did a 30-second segment just to announce that AEW had launched their Toys for Tots Christmas scheme or whatever, where they were donating so many toys and people could donate here and blah blah blah. I don't remember, like the time before that, I couldn't tell you. You know, it's
so. I was thinking about that myself. The last time I can think of is when he got Meltzer drivered. Whatever happened? Did they ever follow up on that?
Oh yeah, sure. He they had that whole thing with the Bucks and Okada kind of taking over, and then that kind of finished maybe about a month ago at the previous pay-per-view.
Who's in control now?
Well, it's Tony Khan, but like it's not really a control thing.
No, but like in storyline,
the Bucks in storyline, the Bucks lost the world title at not the last pay-per-view, the previous one, and they kind of stormed out, and they haven't been seen since. Okay.
Well, look, at least they paid that off, but I don't know, man. Look, it's just he's a bridge too far. I see his face. I get sick in my mouth a bit, and I'm like, I just can't. So I don't know. Maybe put a blue dot over him or something. That might work. The old Christian treatment. I don't know. But look, that's my bias. If someone else was booking, or even if they said someone else was booking, like they have like a Teddy and they're like the Teddy books, and it really is him, I'd be okay with that. He needs a proxy or like a mouth of Sauron, you know. That's what he needs. But look, at least I've identified my issue with it. That and the Young Bucks. Can't stand looking at the Young Bucks. But Kenny Omega, he's okay. I like Kenny Omega.
Kenny's apparently back. Well, he's
coming back soon. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
He's got the Wrestle Dynasty show, which
it's like Danny O'Brien. I hate Danny O'Brien or Bryan Danielson or whatever his name is. Can't stand him. So there's just certain figures in wrestling I just don't like.
It's Braniel Danielson.
Yeah, it's just it's just one of those things. But I was just trying to sit and verbalize it. And anyone, like, you watch videos or you read content and they're like, what do you... And it always comes back to the same thing. So, I don't know.
You definitely have a certain type you like. Like, I still can't get over the fact you don't like Hangman Page.
No, it's not that I don't like him. I just think he needs more to do. I think he can get there. He's not like a fully formed character. He'll get there. He will get there over time.
That's what I mean. Like, to me, he is the single most layered, established character in all of wrestling.
I mean, he's no Triple H, he's not the game, like, so let's not go crazy. But no, like, it's just he's not there yet. He will get there. It's just taking. It's like Danny O'Brien. If Danny O'Brien grew his hair out a bit, had Motorhead playing, carried sledgehammer.
Put on
leather
15
jacket.
Stone and muscle.
Yeah, he'd be fine. Change up the moveset a bit. He'd be the greatest wrestler of all time. But alas, he retired instead. Okay, so moving on, Martin. It is Christmas Eve, and I hope everyone's having a good time celebrating and getting ready to open presents and all that kind of stuff. But
Santa's coming tomorrow.
He sure is. And if you are on social media, we have given you guys a present. So thanks to the Bleacher Report, who put together this list, and Martin found this list. It's the 12 most festive Christmas matches in WWE history as of 2016. It's quite an eclectic list, I have to say, Martin. Fair play to you. You actually put the legwork in here to find something, and this is a weird list because it's like with TNA. I think all of our Christmas stuff has skewed TNA, so this is the first WWE stuff we've done. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, the thing I liked about it was that it's the 12 most festive Christmas matches. So it's a nice mix. It's not the 12 worst.
No.
It's not the 12 best. It's not the 12. So it has a nice mix of like actual matches, stupid skits, just ridiculous, demeaning divas stuff that we'll get in.
Yeah, it has a lot of this. Yeah.
But it's because I think, look, wrestling podcasters, yeah, it's really funny whenever something's crap and you sit here and you tear it apart. But I think doing that 12 things in a row would get a bit tedious. So what I liked about this was that it's a mishmash of different things.
Yeah, like, look, it's one of those things where I think we kind of can get lost in the weeds a bit, where you're like, oh, this is so bad or so good. Having something that's just weird, I think, is the sweet spot, you know. And this is definitely a weird list. But if you're on our social media, and if you're not and you're listening to us on Phoenix, please go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com, and where you can find the links to our social media for the Wrestling Rewind, but also Nerd to Know Media. We'll post them on both Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, basically I put together a playlist based on this where you can watch all 12 of these matches for absolutely free on YouTube. And some of them are pretty good, some of them are a bit bad, but the thing about it is they're all interesting and they're all unique in different ways.
And they all give a kind of a... One thing I noted whenever I was watching them and just sort of making notes to talk about them was I noted the year. Because they all kind of give a wee insight into what WWE was like at that time.
You know what? That's actually the exact same thing I had in my notes.
Oh, brilliant.
No, because it's just like, you're watching some of them and you're like, okay, the bang of 2001 off that.
You're looking going, this is so 95. This is the 95est thing that has ever 95'd.
But even, you know, the latter stuff, like the recent stuff for this time, it's very of its time.
Yeah, yeah.
Recent would have been 2013, 2014. They were bad years.
Honest to God, like a proper, like a real WWE fan could probably look at any of these clips and without, like, if you could blur the wrestlers, just by the type of thing they're doing, could probably tell what year or at least what era it is.
Yeah, no, like definitely the 2013, 2014 stuff brought back a lot of flashbacks to doing the show every week and being like, God, this was so bad. This was so bad. And turning you off doing wrestling podcasts. So thanks for that. But no, I you can definitely see why people wanted the TNA, or why when NXT happened, it was the biggest thing ever, and then why AEW, because some of this stuff is real bad. But some of it's real good. And it's all fun as well. It's not so bad it's bad. It's just weird, you know. Wrestling at Christmas, wrestling during holidays is a weird thing. Easter's always the weirdest one. They do the Fall to Crucifixions very often, which is a show which we did a couple of years ago. It's on the channel if you guys want to check that out. But like at Christmas, Jesus is never actually mentioned, which is like probably thankful. I think they save it at like Easter to like really kind of go the blasphemous route. But things you can pick from with WWE, Santa is the big thing, right? So some commonalities. Santa is the biggest thing here, right? Where
and Santa is this is a kayfabe Santa. Like, this is not like some wrestler coming out dressed up as Santa. This is not like an angle where someone's disguised as Santa. This is Father Christmas.
Well, see, sometimes,
Santa
right?
Claus.
This is sometimes, right? Sometimes you'll get that. Or else you'll get someone dressed up as Santa Claus. You'll get a diva dressed up as Santa Claus. Or in some case, you'll get, like, as you said, a wrestler whose gimmick is he is literally like a hoss Santa Claus. If he's Santa Claus, he's Santa Claus, but he's going to kick your head in, like that kind of thing.
If we'd thought of this earlier and we'd had the time or the inclination to sit and kind of do the legwork, we could have figured out what Santa Claus is. The real Santa Claus, not wrestlers dressed up as him or whatever, but the real Santa Claus, what his win-loss record actually is. I bet we could have worked it out.
We probably could have worked it out. But for now, all we have is number 10, which we'll get to in a second. But some more commonalities. Eggnog, right? So eggnog is brought up an awful lot. In fact, it's a match at one point. And I've never had eggnog.
You spent a lot of time in the US, don't you?
Yeah, I do, yeah. I've never had eggnog. I can't. Well, no, sorry. I've had it once, and it was disgusting. But I've never sat and gone, I'm going to have a glass of this. I don't know why you would. I think, like, look, as I've been in the US an awful lot, right? Since I was a kid, all the way up until recently, right? I go over a lot. And even still, I don't think I was exposed to it earlier enough, to be honest with you. So basically, it's like a milky punched thing with like
there's egg. There's
but then
raw eggs in it.
With raw eggs in it, but then they also throw like rum or something into it. So
I was in a students' union in Canada. I was working in a university in Canada at the time, working a very, very loose term for what I was actually doing. I had an Irish manager, and he just loved hanging out in the Students' Union, and the two of us would just go down there and sup pints all day. But anyway, that's beside the point. I was there one Christmas, and the bar was serving eggnog, and I said, God, I see that on like movies, American movies and stuff all the time. I was like, let me try that. Let's see what it was like. And Darragh, I know we have our disagreements about AEW and Tony Khan and different things, but I could not be more in step with you here. It is the most repulsive thing. I do not know what commitment or loyalty to tradition or history or heritage drives people to drink that rancid, festering crap.
I think it's just they're exposed to it so early, and it's just I just can't get it. I really can't. But look, it's an American thing. It shows up at Christmas. It's in loads of movies, and as a result, it's like a commonality with these kind of stuff. The next one is stuff on a pole or weapons-based Christmas weapons. So like a festive pole, a present, all that kind of stuff.
Lots of kendo sticks wrapped up to look like candy canes.
Yes, and that would kind of evolve into like the pinnacle of this would be the Miracle on 34th Street fight, right? Which I think is the dumbest thing ever, but also simultaneously not. Like, it's so stupid. It actually kind of makes sense.
What really annoyed me about it was the name. There's so many options. Call it the the Massacre on 34th Street, Mayhem on 34th Street. Like, why is it the Miracle?
I have one. Silent Night, Bloody Night.
Why is it not Silent Night, Violent Night?
That's even better. Like, someone should have done that. We probably had it on the list, and they're like, no. Someone else will do that.
I might as well throw this in here now. We talk about it later when we get to it, but I might as well throw this in here now. This one really, really bugged me. So later on, you get Santa Claus, but he's Mick Foley, so they call him like Santa Mick or whatever.
Foley Claus.
Yeah. Which is stupid because that's two last names. But the one that really bugged me is JBL. They call him JBL Kringle. Yeah. And I'm like, JB Elf. Just call him JB Elf. Like, it writes itself. Why would you? Anyway, that one really bugged me for some reason.
No, that's fair. But, you have to, I think that one is from Tribute to the Troops, which is, we'll get to at a point because that's a time capsule in and of itself. Yeah. But yeah, I'll give that a bit of slack because that was never supposed to actually really be on TV as such. But yeah, no, I'll give you that. Okay, so look, we're going to get into this now in a few minutes, but we are about to reach time for the podcast, folks. So or for the radio show before we go into the podcast. So look, if this is your first time checking us out on Phoenix 92.5 FM, thank you so much for checking us out. We wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. But don't go anywhere because you have to go over to Nerd to Know Media and get the rest of the show, or go over to YouTube and subscribe. You can comment on whatever we're going to say and you get the rest of the show. But Martin, just say you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I forgot a present. What do I do? What should they do, Martin?
I mean, like, particularly if it's for someone who's close to you and you want to know how much you love them, or for someone who's not close to you, you want to just get something that's universal that everyone would love.
Yes.
Like, my recommendation would be the Rennet tier of the Wrestling Rewind Patreon.
Have to.
Because with the Rennet tier, like, you're not only saying to that person, listen, I didn't get you the Punk Penny. I didn't get you the X-Pac Euro. I went straight to the top. The king of the mountain.
Oh, you beat me to it. By a second, you beat me to it by a second.
Straight in there with the Rennet tier, which is tenor spelled backwards. And you get, for your loved one, or for that stranger, or for the person who you're in a Secret Santa with a limit of £10 with, you get your legally distinct Buckley list read out on the show. You get to pick the next show or pay-per-view that we cover. If you're available, if it suits with time and everything, we might even bring you on the show to talk about it. But Santa coming down the chimney in his gold gilded bag, the one he keeps for the real expensive, real precious presents.
The top tier stuff.
The absolute, the Rennet tier stuff. Will be bringing you a handwritten letter from the Wrestling Rewind team, written in the only style that would be appropriate. Backwards.
There you go.
A Christmas sorted.
A Christmas miracle, if you will.
Fine.
But,
get one for everyone. Or buy one and just give them all the password, but we wouldn't we wouldn't advocate that.
No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. All the shows are free normally, so you would help us out greatly. But no, seriously, folks, if you're listening to this and you're like, I forgot to get someone a present, you can go over on our Patreon, sign up for any tier, but the Rennet tier, which is tenor spelled backwards, is the peak one, the best one, the one that you want, the one you can give to anyone that you know, even random people on the street. They're like, what the hell is this? There you go. They'll find out.
It's the season of giving, you know?
Absolutely.
And every tenner that you spend goes towards, we're trying to develop technology that will create glasses that Darragh can wear that will blur out Tony Khan whenever he appears, and then Darragh will become the biggest AEW fan in the world.
There you go. Help me enjoy AEW, folks. That's what you're doing.
Help Darragh become all elite.
But folks, again, thank you so much for checking out our Christmas special here. If you are listening on Phoenix 92.5 FM, go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com, go over to YouTube, or where any podcasts are made available, because we are going to get heavily into this Christmas list on the next part of the show. We will talk to you on the next one here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. See you then.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Alright folks, and we're back here on the Wrestling Rewind, YouTube, Spotify, the True Penny channel, True Penny Network, wherever you are listening. Thank you so much. And Martin, let's get into this list from the Bleacher Report, the 12 most festive Christmas matches in WWE.
Could not have timed that any better, Darragh, because a lot of this stuff is going to require some post-watershed analysis.
You see, this is why I was like, we cannot put this on the radio.
How are we going to cover Jerry Lawler's various outbursts in a way that won't scandalize the good listeners of Phoenix FM?
See, folks, we are literally a radio show. So that's it. We're a radio show first and everything else after it. So we do have to kind of play by the rules for the first hour. But that's why you come over here.
We're a radio show in the streets and a podcast in the sheets.
Well, particularly when divas show up and you have Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. And he's saying some pretty scandalous stuff.
Panting. Howling.
So with that being said, our first match is a mistletoe on a pole match. Here's the thing. Vince Russo gets a lot of flack, rightly and wrongly. Mostly rightly, to be fair. Most things said about Vince Russo are 100% accurate, and you're totally justified for saying them. Because he loved the pole an awful lot. Everything on a pole. But for some reason, WWE...
There's a clip. I'm going to note that down. Vince Russo loved the pole.
And he put everything on the pole, right? But WWE went through this weird phase where they also started doing it as well. And it would always be around Christmas. They're like, no matter what era you pick, luckily not the most recent one, but like up until a couple of years ago, every single December, there would be at least one something on a pole match. And the most famous one, not being festive, is the pink slip on a pole match. That was part of the Mick Foley Triple H storyline. It was supposed to be a festive gift or anything like that, right? And then you have Feast or Fired over in TNA. So there's 4 things on a pole. But this is unique in the sense that it's mistletoe and it's not really a match. It's divas, and this was before the women's revolution, so a lot of these girls were there for one reason. But we had Brie Bella, Nikki Bella, Tamina, Alicia Fox, Caitlin, AJ Lee, Oksana, Natalia, and Rosa Mendes. These names are triggering some awful things. Some flashbacks of a time where I would have to do this every week. And I remember this not being good. And look, the women, phenomenal women. They are something else. This match is enjoyable, but not for the women, not for the wrestling, but for different reasons. Despite the fact there was good women in there who could wrestle, but that's not why this match was happening. This match was happening pretty much because as Jerry the King Lawler was panting in ringside. Martin, what was the point of this match?
Yeah, this is very much the kind of era of the divas are eye candy.
Yeah.
Although one thing I found about this match, as opposed to some of the later matches we discussed, is it wasn't quite as kind of
exploitative.
Yeah,
it wasn't really that bad.
or graphic as some of the other one. But what it did do was it perfectly encapsulated exactly what WWE thought of the divas at the time.
Yeah.
So before the match, Mick Foley comes out dressed up as Santa, and he says, this is the mistletoe on a pole match, and the winner of this will get to cash the mistletoe in for like a top prize. They'll get to cash it, and he's constantly using the phrase "cash it in," and then the commentators are talking about like, it's a bit like a mistletoe in the bank and all, and it's given the impression that whoever climbs the pole and gets the mistletoe will be able to cash it in for a world title shot. And what it turns out in the end is they cash it in they get to use the mistletoe to kiss any WWE superstar that they like.
Yeah.
The contempt they have for women's wrestling in this era is just astounding.
I have to say, though, I did kind of like the practical effects where Mick was there and they made it snow.
Yeah, that was pretty.
That was pretty cool. The match was not very good, but as you said, yeah, the
other thing it reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Black Books. It's a tremendous. I think it's the best sitcom ever. A guy running the bookshop, and this woman comes up and goes to buy a book, and he goes, "Yes, £2.99. There you go. Enjoy. It's dreadful, but it's quite short." And that's what this match was. It was dreadful, but it was literally 1 minute long.
Yeah, but again, like you can see why at this time the women's knockout division, like the only women's division that was worth it for wrestling fans was the knockout division in TNA.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like the ultimate insult about all this is that. Yeah, so they made it look like it was going to be a Money in the Bank type thing. Then it was like, no, you get to go and kiss whoever you like. But the ultimate insult was that then the women were like delighted with this. The Bella twins are like, oh yeah, we get to kiss whoever we want. It's like, no, you should be flipping outraged.
And really, it was the kiss Vince McMahon. Allegedly.
Is that who it was in the end?
I don't know. Apparently he was kissing everybody. And sending like smiley emoji, heart emojis, which is still the funniest thing ever.
Was it Vince going, the contract says you can kiss any superstar in WWE, but there's only one superstar in WWE.
Smiley face.
And it's Mr. McMahon.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. I'm glad these days are gone. I remember them well, and the poor women in there. Like it's literally just before the women's revolution really kind of took off, where women were actually wrestling rather than whatever this was. But then again, if that had been the case, Alicia Fox wouldn't be. A funny story. So I'm not going to sidetrack, but Alicia Fox was wrestling once when I was over in Manchester. I think it was a SmackDown taping, and I got so frustrated watching her wrestle, I got up and walked around the arena 4 times.
In what way? Like,
oh, she's just terrible.
Oh, right.
She's gotten a lot better. She got a lot better, but at this time she was god awful. And I literally got up and walked around the arena 4 times until I knew she wasn't going to be there.
Well, she did get better than that.
She got a lot better, but around this time she was not good. Tamina was not good either. Caitlin was awful. Oksana was real bad, and Rosa Mendez was okay. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad for AJ Lee, Natalia, and one of the Bellas.
The actual wrestlers.
Yeah, one of the Bellas.
Because that's kind of a theme where there'll be other women's matches come up later, and you're like, you're looking at there's one match in particular. I think it's like a 10-woman tag match, and there's maybe 2 real wrestlers in it, and you're looking at them and you can see that they are
dying inside
to be doing this.
They're dying inside.
Like, you know, Natalie's there or Natalia's there going, I was trained in the Heart Dungeon. Why am I poking bums with Vicky Guerrero?
So bad. But you know, the next one actually was a massive treat, I have to say. The Boiler Room Brawl match is like a very interesting thing. Because it's either a really, really good match or not. and it's like, and even the ones that aren't like good matches, they're usually for a story, and it's like a really cool way to get from A to B without putting yourself in harm's way, to be honest with you. Instead of going in and having a really bloody match, you can kind of convolute a way to get McFoley in the Boiler Room and then have like a 2-minute smudge, and you achieve the same thing as him going out and getting 15 chair shots in the head. Like, so I was glad that didn't happen, because 1999, Mick Foley, The Rock is going to appear somewhere with a chair. Just happens. Yeah, Mick Foley standing around for too long in 1999. The Rock's coming out with a chair. Yeah, it's what's happening.
Cave your skull in.
Exactly. So I was just like, okay, The Rock isn't here. This is fine. So to put this into context, this is in number 11, the Boiler Room Brawl match, Mankind versus the Mean Street Posse. In December 1999, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were part of the the McMahon Helmsley era. So that was like, for anyone that does remember, they were like running ruckshaw over WWE. They had ousted Vince and they were making all these matches and stuff. So they set up a match, like a ploy for Mick to be in a match with Santa Claus, like not a wrestler, like the actual Saint Nick himself. So Vince
shoot Santa.
Shoot Santa. He's doing an interview with Mike Cole beforehand. He's like, well, look, I don't particularly want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And Mick's making loads of Christmas puns, which I enjoy. Although I enjoyed it at this point, but they kept making them throughout. That's another commonality we forgot. They keep making the same jokes.
Yeah.
Generally, the whole way through.
Yeah. Like your attitude to this skit will really... like we say about everything, it's very of its time.
It's very 1999.
This was the era of Mankind where he was goofy. The book had come out. He was more about being funny than about being the hardcore. Like I couldn't believe that this was in the middle of his feud with Triple H. Like, considering how
it was just
violent.
It was just before. So this was literally like a week or two before the beatdown on SmackDown the beatdown on Raw where he'd get battered and then come out on SmackDown and release Cactus Jack.
Cactus Jack, So in the middle of this like incredibly violent feud, we have this daft thing where Triple H is going, oh yeah, you're going to wrestle Santa Claus.
Well, it's because he loves Santa Claus. That's why he made him do it.
So your perception of this will kind of be dictated to by how much you enjoy kind of goofier or comedy stuff in wrestling.
To be fair, I know what, I can buy this. Like,
I like it. Look,
the Santa Claus, like, he has those big coked out eyes, which it's like, what are you doing? So Santa's been on the white stuff, and it's not the snow.
Santa's on the schnachter.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what happens is he goes in, has a talk with Saint Nick, being like, look, you can go outside and you win the match. He then gets jumped by the Main Street Posse, who are in tuxedos, but now they're dressed as Santa men. And then 2 lads who are actually like really decent turn out to be the New Age Outlaws. And then you have like an actual bit of a schmoz where Mick goes through a table, blah, blah, blah. But there's a bit I really like where he starts getting the upper hand, and he picks up this like pane of glass, and I had
And he
prepared to
holds
be
it
like,
directly in front of his face.
yeah, but I had this part where I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a funny Jack Perry joke here, and then it didn't happen. So he holds it right right in front of his face, and it gets broken, and he loses the match. So I was just like, this is disappointing, but not disappointing because the match was bad, but because it ruined my joke.
Well, I tell you what I did appreciate about it. It reminded me of dreadful wrestlers, but how fun the Mean Street Posse were.
Oh man, I love the Mean Street. Like, I'm so excited to like cover more stuff from 1999 because I love the Mean Street Posse. They're the worst wrestlers ever, except for Joey Abs. He was like legit. The rest of them weren't. But Rodney and Picasso, fantastic.
And it's just the best crack. And you know what? The characters would actually be ruined if they were good wrestlers. They kind of need to be crap.
One of them was actually legit, but I think you could do that nowadays. But like they kind of did, but like it's Logan Paul. You know what I mean? Like,
or Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah, but I mean, he needs to. Yeah. Actually, there's a tag team right there: Dominic Mysterio and Logan Paul. But they're both too good. They need to both be like TikTok stars who are terrible and have one good wrestler. And that's like the way. But you need to be like a friend. Here's what you do, right? Logan Paul's mates, 2 of them who are real bad, and hook them up with like a decent wrestler, and he just follows them around like the floozies. Book it.
The edgeheads.
Yeah.
Come here.
Sorry. Just on that point, you know what wrestling has lost nowadays for its one of the things that does kind of suck. No, they don't have floozies anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like AEW, like Don Callis is the closest thing to it, and Don Callis is great. But
MJF
like,
sometimes
MJF, yeah. Like I think nothing screams heel more like a menagerie of floozies. You know, particularly when 2 of them cannot wrestle and 1 of them kind of can. It's just that sweet spot where you're like, oh, when you get beaten, it's going to be really entertaining. You know, just add something to it. I wish more places did it. TNA always did it great with the Christian Coalition. R.I.P. Tomko, even though Tomko's not dead, but still, R.I.P. Tomko.
In our hearts, he is.
In our hearts. R.I.P. his career. Okay, sorry. Now that Tony Khan can win me over, hire Tomko.
No, that's
what I want for Christmas. That's what I want for Christmas. I want Tomko in AEW.
But come here. So I wanted to ask, like we see all these acts come back, and they all get their kind of turn at a nostalgia go. Like we even saw, I think, was it Coco Beware was on a
random show
on a show recently. Is the reason that the Mean Street Posse never really got that because they're so closely associated with Shane?
Yeah, like 2 of them are legitimately Shane's friends, so they're probably like bankers or like investments or like just hanging out in Greenwich. They probably have lives, like, you know. They were legitimately Shane's friends, except for Pete Gas. It was actually just a wrestler who they put a sweater vest on him and he had a bit of a run.
I always wondered why the reason they never came back was I thought maybe it was something to do with, Shane and them had their fallout. But yeah, it makes more sense that they're, like you say, they're probably just really rich, multi-millionaire bankers.
Yeah, they're probably just like, no, I have like a life.
Triple H rings them up and goes, hey, do you want to come on international TV on Monday and we'll cover you in goo and dump you in a bin and call you a jackass? And they're like,
and power bomb you through 15 tables? No, thanks.
No, I'm grand. I'm grand sitting here in my big massive house with me, wife with her huge fake tits. Like, I'm perfectly happy where I am.
So I think that's your answer. That's probably why it never happened. But you know what? Hall of Fame. Eventually, when they run out of people and it's a lean year.
When you look at some of the people who are in the Hall of Fame,
exactly,
there's definitely a case for the Mean Street Posse.
The music as well, top tier. I'm actually really excited when we go back and look at some Mean Street Posse matches. It's going to be a good time. So look, the next match is very 1995. It's Santa Claus with Nex versus Scott Taylor, who you would know as Scotty Too Hotty. So Do you know? Okay, so here's one. Do you know what they're saying in the song?
Oh, in the Too Cool song.
Yeah.
I don't. Are we about to have another? Are we about to open up another tier?
We are. So what they say is, "You look fly today."
All right.
That's it.
That tracks. Yeah. Seems like something they would say.
Because I had no idea my whole time watching them as like when I was a kid. I had no idea what they were saying. Just complete nonsense, and it didn't matter because you're like, "Yeah, too cool. Look, they dance when you put the sunglasses on. It's great." And now you're like, "You look fly today." That actually makes way more sense. You know, it's like make some noise with X-Pac. It's like, yeah, of course, he wants you to cheer for him.
Well, the problem with the X-Pac one was that it sounded like something else. So the "You Look Fly Today," just like you were saying, just kind of sounded like nothing.
Like nothing,
but the X-Pac one sounded like he was just really weirdly screaming X-Pac.
But also, it fit into the character. If he was just screaming X-Pac, you're like, yeah, that's something he'd do.
You'd be like, yeah, he looks like the kind of guy who'd have a sort of a weird, phlegmy speech impediment.
Just screams his name. Also, Scotty Too Hottie, that haircut is real bad.
I mean, compared to the ones he'd have later.
I mean, it works a lot more. Like with
career.
the hat, you know, it just kind of works. It's just he looks really weird with the mullet. Santa Claus.
I mean, it was 1995 in wrestling.
He looks like a really, really skinny, be-mulleted Bob Holly.
But it was 1995 WWF. You couldn't get in the door if you didn't have a mullet.
That's true. That's a very good point. You know, like I can see why nobody was watching this show. This is
who was mullet? Yeah, Shawn Michaels was mulleted at the time.
Yeah,
Jeff
Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett. Was it the Freebirds or
the
Fabulous Rougeaus? Or a couple of them were mulleted.
The Hardys.
Tatanka.
The Hardys were there as well.
Yeah, they were all. It was wall to wall mullets.
Wall to wall mullets. Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, Austin didn't because he just showed he wasn't the Hollywood Blondes anymore. And yeah, no, you're right. It tracks. It tracks. Yeah, no. I think Taker had a mullet as well at this point, didn't he?
Oh, probably. Yeah, like I say, you couldn't get in the door. Yeah, he either had to be rided up or be mulleted.
Which brings me to my next point. So Santa Claus was neither of those. He was a rotund gentleman with a really bad beard, and he was wearing like kind of overall like underoos basically, and like half of a Santa costume. So I'm assuming when he came out to the ring, he was.
I thought he was wearing a fat suit.
No, he was just a big lad.
Maybe it was the gear just looked really
bulky, yeah,
weird and bulky, but it looked like he was wearing a fat suit. So like Darragh was saying, this is Santa Claus.
He looked more Russian. He looked more Russian.
Well, he wasn't Russian, and I can tell you for a fact he wasn't Russian because he debuted on a pay-per-view the previous week, one of the In Your Houses that we covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he debuted, I think it was Seasons Beatings, I think is the Christmas one they had, right? And Santa comes out to give out presents, and then the next thing, the $1 Million Man comes out, and he says, everyone's got a price for the $1 Million Man, and he offers Santa money to smash up all the kids' presents, and then Santa does smash up all the kids' presents, and the $1 Million Man has a big laugh, and he goes, this isn't Santa Claus, this is Santa Claus. He's not from the North Pole, he's from the South Pole. Like this unbelievable panto shit. So he's from the South Pole, and he's an evil Santa. And this is the wild thing about this. This wasn't booked as like a one-off kind of gimmick thing, because in the following weeks he'd be on shows and on, you know, doing dark matches and on house shows, and then on like maybe the odd Raw and that. So this was a character that they saw going for, like it was going to be April, and they were going to have Santa Claus out doing God knows what.
Look, the South Pole sounds more exotic than Antarctica.
Well, yeah, because you're trying to do the whole North. Although when I was a kid, Santa wasn't North Pole. Santa was it Greenland? We used to say he was from
Lapland.
Lapland.
That's in Finland.
Yeah.
That's in Finland.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's close. That is close. That's very close to Russia, to be fair.
Yeah, he could be a spy.
No,
Anyway, do you know who he is, by the way?
Santa Claus?
Well, Santa Claus.
Yeah, who is he?
Balls Mahoney.
No, he's not.
Balls Mahoney.
Oh my God, not Balls Mahoney.
Not Balls.
Not Balls. Well, it's because he's dead, and that's really sad. But like,
well, I was the same. I didn't clock that. I looked it up. I was like,
oh, that makes sense. So I just googled Santa Claus and Balls Mahoney pops up, and now it makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah, you just thought you'd logged on to some really weird OnlyFans.
I was like, oh man, wow. I'd say, listen, that's some gold.
Like him.
No, it looks, as I said, he look like, so if you stop the video there, he looks kind of Russian. And Balls Mahoney looks like a lot of things, but not Russian or Eastern European, because he's from New Jersey. Damn, that's wild.
No, yeah, like I say, now I looked it up. I didn't clock it or anything like that because you would not call it.
No, not in a million years. But if so on the WrestleCrap page, there's a picture of him, and he has the Santa hat on, and he looks very Balls Mahoney actually. Now that you say it,
the best part about this, and Darragh wonderfully has uploaded all these to the website with a kind of a playlist, so you can go down through them and watch them as we're talking about them. But the best thing, I don't know if the clip you saw of it is the same clip that I got of it, because the one I got is from WWE's WWE Classics.
Yeah, I have that one too.
And this is like this classic moment from 1995, and it's Santa Claus doing rest holds with a jobber. Oh my God, that probably is a classic moment by 1995 standards.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody watched that program. I mean, WCW, we make a big thing about WCW and the NWO, but really, this is what they were against. You know, it's terrible. Terrible.
It's wild the difference between 95, and this is obviously, so this is Christmas, so this is late 95, this is heading into 1996. The difference, not even between years, the difference in WWF between the first half of 96 and the second half of 96
is night and day.
Completely different shows.
Night and day. So look, the next match, it's funny because with the playlist, it's automatically playing. And I was saying, oh, it's so bad. And then it goes on to the next match and it's just the Funkadactyls dancing. So, but wouldn't you know, that's an improvement over it. So the next match is the aforementioned Jingle Bells match, which you don't really kind of go into what that actually is. So basically, from what I gather, it's the Divas dress up in their sexiest outfits, it looks like, according to this article here. Yep. And they have a tag team match. So your teams are Eva Marie, the Bella Twins, Naomi, Cameron, and Natalia. So, and they're against Oksana, Caitlin, Alicia Fox, Tamina, and Vicky Guerrero. Vicky Guerrero is still somehow on the show, all the way in
an in-ring capacity.
Oh yeah, in 2013. So,
and you also have
Dark Times.
Your Divas champion AJ Lee on commentary.
Yeah, well, at least you didn't have to be part of this.
And AJ Lee turns out bit of a misogynist. Some of the commentary from AJ Lee, I think the main line I got from it was, well, you know what they say, you can't put this many women in one place without a cat fight breaking out. It's like, AJ Lee.
Well, to be fair,
I would expect that from Jerry Lawler.
But you know what was happening? Vince was screaming that line into her ear, and she had no choice but to say it. So he was absolutely, because that's a Vince line if you've ever heard it. So
yeah.
So he look,
was barring down her ear. Fucking listen to me. If you don't say the goddamn catfight line, I'm gonna walk down here in front of everybody, grab your head, and say it into your microphone.
And he would too.
He fucking would, yeah. And he'd blow out both his ACLs doing it. And he'd still drag himself down like a fucking zombie.
So look, this match is horrendous. The belt is also horrendous. The women were just I feel so bad for Natalia, as you said. At least she gets the sharpshooter in, so there's a little bit of cosmic justice. But
there's
God.
The match is everything you expect. It's terrible. It's lots of like at one stage, Vicky Guerrero's wearing like reindeer, like a
no, Vicky Guerrero's wearing like a white ensemble. Someone else's.
But she puts on so during the match she puts on like a reindeer hat thing,
yes,
antlers, and she gets in the ring and like headbutts one of the other wrestlers in the arse with it.
Oh, and she sells it, yeah.
But this match ends with. So this is what we were talking about earlier about the actual wrestlers. This match ends with like 6 of the girls from the Divas, the reality show called Totally Divas. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get in the ring, right? It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And they link arms. And they just start running around in a circle. Like they've no weapons or anything like that. And they're all linking arms. So it's not even as if they have their fists out or anything. They just start running around like in a big like merry-go-round type thing, and one by one the heels like get in the ring and then are, I don't know, maybe blown away by the centrifugal force or the passing wind or whatever of this circle, and they run round in the circle, and it's horrendous. And then at the very, very end after that, Natalia slips into the ring and, yeah, like you said, puts the sharpshooter on Oksana, who I think are the only 2 actual wrestlers there. And you can just see that they're like, oh, thank Christ, this is over.
Have to say, though, AJ Lee, you do miss her. She was a bright spot for a reason. And here's the thing. Punk, I don't know why he was so angry. Like, just don't get it.
In general, or...
When he left and they were together, I'm like, dude, you've won. What are you doing? I don't understand that, man. Good old cousin Phil.
It's like we were sitting here slagging. I think was it maybe not Test? Did Test Day?
Test died.
Yeah, we weren't slagging him for dying. We were slagging him because he kind of left wrestling. But then we discovered that once he left wrestling, he actually went on to like run this really successful business that made him loads of money, and he was real life going out with Stacy Keibler, and then the 2 of us were on the podcast being like, oh shit, no, he won. What are we laughing about? That guy won.
That's it. And Punk didn't realize he'd won the whole time. So I mean, this just reminded me, I was like, oh, I don't know why he was so upset.
Us going, Test, you mid-carder. And he's at home in his mansion with his smoking hot missus. Like, I'm sure he cares.
I'm sure he cares. The next match is very much 2001. But here's the thing. It's not really. It's in 2001, but it's 2002, really, to be fair. That's what it kind of looks like. And that's why it was weird, because when I was watching it, I'm like, this isn't 2001, because that was all the invasion stuff. But it's literally Christmas Eve 2001, so it's a tail end. It's smack bang in the middle of the hostile takeover. Ric Flair showed up, says he's the owner, half owner of WWE, because the consortium that bought WWE after the invasion was set up all this. So this is like a weird transition period between the death of the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era, which would take place. However, it's Christmas Eve. None of that mattered. What mattered here was Bubba Claus, which is Bubba Ray Dudley, and Tajiri Claus, which is Tajiri. A great line that happened here. It was like, oh, Tajiri Claus, it looks like he's on Slim Fast. It's like, that's actually a great line to be fair.
What there was a line later that I liked where Bubba Ray takes off his belt and starts beating Tajiri with it, and King's going, isn't there a disqualification? He's using a weapon. Like, why isn't the referee doing anything? And you can just hear JR giving up, like, I don't know what the goddamn rules of a Santa Claus match are.
So this was a Santa Claus match, and they made a big thing out of it by calling it a Santa Claus match, but they didn't explain what the rules were. At least with TNA, when they do nonsense, they show the rules, which is how you knew you were in for some serious shit.
Yeah.
This was like,
they'd have nonsense where they would have to put like like a PowerPoint up on screen.
Exactly, to explain what's going on. But you know what? I would have taken that over nothing. Where you're like, I guess it's no disqualification, but also
you're
still counting.
You're like 8 minutes into it before JR. It's just like, I don't know what the goddamn rules are.
But look, so basically, they both dressed up as Santa Claus. Santa Claus is, or dressed up as, I don't know. And yeah, so this was a whole lot of like, it was actually a pretty decent match, to be fair. So the real story was Vince and Ric Flair had their teams basically, and it kept cutting back and forward between Vince's green room and Ric Flair's green room. And to be fair, Ric Flair's green room looks like a lot more fun. So, you know,
well,
that
so
was kind of what they.
Ric Flair's green room is kind of like different wrestlers, like all the wrestlers are sitting around watching it. Vince's green room is he's got one or two wrestlers, like, you know, kind of part of his posse, and then all these girls dressed up as not rain, but they're in like sexy outfits.
Hold on. The Brooklyn Brawler is there.
The Brooklyn Brawler's there. He's not in a sexy outfit. Well, it depends what you're in, I suppose. But so Vince is with all the girls.
Vince missed an opportunity there
in the scantily clad outfits. But there was one thing I noticed. Who is the wrestler standing behind Vince? Is it Test? It's either Test or
Test.
Is it Test? Right.
Yeah.
So the whole time Test is, so it's Vince and then one of the reindeer girls stood side by side, but the reindeer girl is kind of like leaning against a table and kind of pointing her ass at Vince, and Test is behind her. And every time the camera cuts back, Test has a thing of mistletoe in his hand.
Yeah.
And the camera cuts to him the first time, he's like holding it over the girl's head. He's behind her. She can't see any of this. But every time the camera comes back, it's like lower and lower down to the point where when they cut back to him the last time, he's got the mistletoe like just over her ass, and he's making like kissy faces with the mistletoe just over her ass. Just
sensational.
Yeah. Test. So this was great to see Tajiri. Love me some Tajiri. Not great to see Bubba, but hilarious to see him coming out for a Santa Claus match. The man who now makes his living crying on radio about how badly booked AEW is.
No, to be fair, this is
Santa Claus match.
To be fair, this is 2001 and it's the Christmas Eve episode. It doesn't matter.
You can tell it's 2001 because there's a sign very promptly, like right in front of.
Oh, do we have a sign read? Go on.
I'd rather be at Nitro.
Well, here's the thing: you couldn't be because it was gone at this time.
Well, I think this was their kind of like this is like the hardcores just
still hanging on to it.
This was more of a eulogy, like or a lament.
But look, the thing about this as well, it also would call on to our next match, because our next match in the list actually happened earlier on. So it's the same show because they reference it later on. And it's a eggnog match, Tori Wilson and Stacy Keibler. Now look, it's a different time, right?
It's a different time.
A different time, right? But having women roll around in, now to be fair, they come out dressed as in very sexy Santa outfits, which is not a bad thing, you know. That's one thing.
They're covered, so they're Mrs. Claus.
Mrs. Claus outfits, yeah.
They're dresses, like, so.
Yeah, they're
like,
not like
you could wear it to the work Christmas do, and it would.
Yeah, exactly. That's the vibe that they're going for. It's not like, it's not scantily clad or anything like that. But you think that would have been enough? But no, within minutes they have. So basically, the outfit is the object is to rip the outfit off. Basically, it's like a Bram Haddy's match, but
with a massive paddling pool
of eggnog.
It's filled with eggnog. Yeah. So this match almost gives Jerry Lawler, like, he almost crosses over into the legally distinct fictional character Mark Madden. He almost crosses over into that. So Stacy Keibler comes down And
there's a lot of heavy breathing in this.
There's a lot of heavy breathing. There's a lot of where he's trying to say a word, but all he can make is sounds. Now, I'm not going to go.
Just like the legally distinct entity that is the character of Mark Madden.
He ventures into that territory. But I'm not going to go too hard on this one because Stacey Keebler was my girl. Like when I was growing up.
Not to be fair, when she walks out, you're like,
yeah,
you know,
I was 14 again.
But you're like, okay, look, I totally get it. But the thing of it is, it is kind of awful when you're like, you know, these women are going out on national television and they're being demeaned that much. It's like,
if someone walked in while you were watching it, you'd be mortified.
This was the points when you were a kid and you shouldn't, like, we were like, what, 2001? It was like 8. You were sitting there and you're watching it going, it's wrestling. And then you'd be like, no, not this. you try to justify it, like.
So yeah, Stacey Keebler comes out and she walks over to the big thing of eggnog and she dips her fingers in the eggnog and sucks her fingers then. Which firstly I wouldn't have done because I suspect that was not actually eggnog. But
I think it was, yeah.
Jerry, this is where he starts to lose the plot. Like he's trying to say something, but all he can make is noises about Stacey Keebler licking her fingers. And then the next thing, Tori Wilson walks out, and she has a candy cane in her mouth. She's sucking on a candy cane, and all I can hear is Jerry Lawler going, "Oh my God, I wish I was a candy cane." Jesus, Jerry.
Oh man.
And the outfits that they're wearing, while not like a conservative, but they're for wrestling, they're fairly modest. But you soon realize that that's a fabrication because as soon as they get into the eggnog,
come off immediately.
Any water gets in them, they immediately come off, and they're not in sports gear. They're not in like revealing wrestling outfits. They are in literal underwear, just the underwear you would have anywhere, and this leaves very little to the imagination. This is softcore porn.
It's not the worst incarnation of this, but by God, it's up there.
I mean, you could take the gif of Tori Wilson spanking Stacey Keebler in the middle of this match, and if you stuck a Pornhub logo on that, anyone would buy it.
Yeah, it's look, as the article says, hindsight is 2020. And it's one of those things where this was on. It's not a match. it's just not. But it was successful. It got over.
The best
Wilson won.
The best part about it is, Tori Wilson wins. But then afterwards, Stacey Keebler attacks her and beats her down because you got to get your heat back. You can't just lose the eggnog match. Stacey does, and again, I'm the Stacey Keebler guy. Does possibly the worst scoop slam I've ever seen, and I'm including like when I was in training school with other guys just learning how to do scoop slams. It is the worst one I've ever seen.
Look, the next match up that we have on the list is actually a pretty decent match, and it's one of the first matches that you can actually go, okay, that was all right. And it's a Christmas present on a pole match. Dolph Ziggler versus Fandango. Remember that really brief window when you might not actually, because I don't know if you're watching wrestling at this point, but Fandango was like super over for a week, and there was a whole big thing. It was like the Joe Hendry thing, but with absolutely no legs.
So I was double baffled by this. I was like, why? I was vaguely aware of Fandango, but I was kind of double baffled by this. So the winner, unlike the women who got to kiss whoever they like, the winner of this got an Intercontinental title shot.
Yes.
So yeah, I was baffled by Fandango being in it.
Yeah.
I was baffled by Fandango being over. I was baffled by Fandango winning it. But then I also had my whole worldview shattered. Like, again, because I wasn't watching at the time, I was thinking, am I saying it wrong? Because the whole way through here, Michael Cole keeps calling him Fondongo.
Yeah.
Fondongo win. Fondon. Oh, and a brutal kick from Fondongo. And I'm like, sitting there going, am I the problem? Am I saying it wrong? Is it Fondongo?
So, quick history lesson. Fandango was over for about a cup of coffee. His music was the thing, and it was like dancing and all that kind of stuff. Like people would dance in the crowd, and it was a whole big. For like a week, it was like the biggest thing ever. It trended on iTunes and all that kind of stuff. So he got a bit of a push, and this is about as far as it went. But no, it was Fandango. But he would say when he would come out, he'd be like Fandango, that kind of thing.
Oh,
so
right.
It was
the other thing I thought was hilarious was that after Fandango wins, like he gets the thing down and he's celebrating in the ring, and the Raw logo comes up. You know, the thing you get at the end of the show.
Yeah,
and it goes to black. Holy shit! This was closing the show in 2012. Fandango on a pole match.
Well, now he's known as Dirty Dango in TNA.
Oh, he's in TNA, is he?
Yeah, so he's still wrestling, but it's a long way from topping the iTunes charts and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like he was super over for a hot minute. Like the match, this clip isn't super long, as you'll see on the playlist, but the match itself, it was okay. I mean, Fandango wasn't a bad talent. There was just no
it's a decent TV match.
Decent TV match, yeah, and obviously Ziggler's in there, and like the sad thing about Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, obviously now, but he would this is what he did. He would just go in, wrestle with the it girl of the week, basically, and sell for them like $1 million, and that would be it. So
it's nearly like, again, to go back to that snapshot of a time thing. Dolph Ziggler kind of couldn't have placed himself worse, because he was a good wrestler in WWE at the time when the worst thing you could be was a good wrestler. Because
he would build up the lesser guys to get over. Yeah,
exactly. All you ever got at that time from being a good wrestler was you could be counted on to go out and have a good match with the actual person they wanted to push.
Yeah, like you had a job for life, which Ziggler pretty much would have still had.
He basically had a clause way out of his contract, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that was it. Like it was like, we're not gonna let you go because you're too good,
He's like, but I've put everybody over. But we need you to do it again and again and again.
From different angles.
On different pay-per-views.
The next match is also, it's funny you mentioned it, because it is a snapshot where Damien Sandow was also super over. And Damien Sandow is another kind of character, which is great. Very much of 2013. And then, it's mad to see he was so over and it went nowhere. First person to not cash in Money in the Bank successfully as well. And ever since then, his career he was gone in WWE in a couple of years.
That's a real...
it's very sad.
That would be an awesome angle for you cashing in and losing Money in the Bank, not to be like I hate when wrestling fans say buried, because they use it for anything. Like two guys.
This guy was buried. It was buried.
Nowadays, two guys that have like a 60-minute 5-star classic, and one of them will win, and the other guy was buried. It's like, no, he wasn't. He's amazing. Nah, man, this getting the Money in the Bank and not winning. Oh, that's a burial.
And it was deep in the We Hate Cena thing as well. So there was room for a character that could dethrone Super Cena. And Mark Henry was the guy. This is when Mark Henry kind of got his flowers,
is this what leads into the Hall of Pain thing?
It was around the same time. It was WWE at this point. Everything came separate to Cena. So if Cena was over, nothing else got a look in. But around it, you could build some kind of stuff, and it's usually on SmackDown. So if it was on Raw, it was garbage like this. If it was on SmackDown, it was probably a lot better. So no, to answer your question, no, this wouldn't be it. But no one benefited from this. Mark Henry was still being really fat. But here's the thing: it would eventually, he would finally get sick of this and go into his Hall of Fame thing, and he'd grow his beard out and just start bodying guys. So yeah, in a roundabout way, exactly. But it would have to happen on SmackDown.
So this
would
was
happen on Raw.
This was Good Santa versus Bad Santa. Good Santa was Mark Henry. Bad Santa was Damien Sandow.
Yes.
I liked the actual set, like loads of
the set was great.
Christmas trees and presents, like loads of stuff that you could plunder brawl through, crashing through and that. What they didn't reveal, much like JR and the Santa match, or I don't know, goddamn rules of a Santa match are, much like him earlier on, about 3/4 of the way through this match, the commentators reveal that if Bad Santa wins, Christmas is cancelled.
Ah, yes.
Not a Christmas party or
no
Christmas. Like if Damien Sandow had won this, the WWE was going to break down the doors of the chapel in Dunleary on Christmas Day. Like, get out! This is over.
Big stakes that they couldn't follow up on.
That Savior was not born today. Get the fuck out of here. So Christmas was cancelled. So there was zero stakes to this because, you knew who was winning.
Yeah.
It was perfectly. It was short, and I like Mark Henry. Damien Sandow is one of those guys that, like you're saying, he was hot for a while, but he's from that period of wrestling where I didn't watch, so I just no idea who he is.
It's you know what it was? People from this era are a fever dream.
David's Fandango. 24 women's wrestlers you could name.
No, literally, because it was they didn't build anybody. That's why it's so damning. It's you built 2 people, 3 people.
Wasn't there a pirate guy around this time?
There was Burchill, Paul Burchill. You built 3 people: Batista, Cena, and you could say Orton, but also Edge. 4 people. That was it. And yeah, it was
pay-per-views from this time must have been a slog to get through.
It was the worst. One of the reasons why I'm hesitant about putting up the archive from this time period is just me and Bring going, show's really bad. Don't watch it. It's just every week. So yeah,
the main event featured the 2 or 3 wrestlers that they push, and then the 7 undercard matches were a load of shit.
And a lot of them involved the women as well, which was even worse. But look, so the next match is our 3rd Miracle on 34th Street match, but it is the 4th one on the list. So number 4, Miracle on 34th Street match: Dean Ambrose versus Bray Wyatt from December 22nd, 2014. So look, the rules of this match are very, very similar. It's a street fight, but all the weapons are Christmas themed or have Christmas items on them or whatever. And it involves Dean Ambrose, who is really, really bad in this. And one of my favorite wrestlers is not my favorite wrestler of the current age, who is great until he wrestles a match. R.I.P. Bray Wyatt.
I wanted to ask you, what was it like for you watching Bray in this?
Oh man, Bray was never a good in-ring wrestler. This was
this is 2013. This is his.
Yeah.
Is this his kind of a Baptist preacher?
Yeah. So this is when he had just come up from NXT, and he hadn't really found that he was over, but he wasn't crazy over yet. He wouldn't. He would struggle, and he had both of these guys,
not Baptist, but he was doing a Bayou cult leader type thing. So both
of these guys had the exact same problem, right? They both struggled from their previous gimmick. So Ambrose was in the Shield had broken up. He kind of floundered. Wyatt was the same. The Wyatt family had kind of splintered off at this point. So he was kind of still trying to find his way. And both of these guys feuded for way too long. And it just never clicked because Ambrose is not really able to put together a match well. in certain circumstances, and Bray was not good enough to be able to do that either. See, two guys in there having an okay brawl, but anytime they would feud, it would always be like this, So
I was looking at it going, I can't believe this guy's Jon Moxley.
But that's it. I mean, it's the same.
I see why he left.
Yeah, but it's the same problem. It's like whenever you watch with Moxley, it's like he has a lot more. He can do a lot more crazy spots and hide this. But when you're doing your WWE street fight, there's only so much you can really do. And if you're not in there with somebody who can put together a match, like again, Bray Wyatt's one of the best wrestlers of all time until he gets in that ring. And once he's in that ring, it collapses. So
I mean, he's not terrible. It's just that
this was a main event. This was a main event.
No, but I mean, I'm talking about Bray Wyatt in general. Like, it's not that he's terrible in the ring. I mean, he's not great, but it's the fact that everything else he does, like you say, is so great that it really, really builds it up. Like, it really builds up the match, and you so want it to be good.
Yeah, no, and that's it. But like, it's because they had done the cult leader thing. They had both just come off big stories. This is around WrestleMania 30, 31. So they both come off big stories. Obviously, Dean Ambrose was there with the Shield, but he never recovered. Moxley never recovered from the Shield ever. Like he it's ironic because when the Shield was there, it was the coolest thing ever. Like, we'll go back and look at the Shield because it is one of the coolest things ever. And I remember the time there, and everybody thought Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley was going to be the biggest star ever out of the Shield, and he just wasn't. Everyone else was, and it never really clicked, and he kind of stuck there for as long as he could. What was it? Bray Wyatt's the same. Bray Wyatt also was never able to really make a click until he swapped gimmicks, or he'd leave and come back, and that's how he found his way around it. Dean Ambrose never did that. He'd just fall into these feuds that no one benefited from, and because the top of the card was Cena, Batista, Orton, you were not breaking into that. So
that's why
this was a dark time. This was a dark time.
And became Mox.
Well, no, because he didn't leave at. This was before it.
No, I was looking at the year there, and I was thinking, oh my god.
You can see why it built up to it.
He has 6 more years. This.
Yeah, you can see why it was a slow build-up process. The upside is 2015 NXT, 2014, 2015 NXT was unbelievable. It was like, I would say that's proto AEW. That's what people think, or what AEW was is
when they started doing like the takeovers and stuff.
Yeah. So like a lot of the WWE fans at the time, they were not watching Raw, they were watching NXT, and it kind of was like a brand within a brand, and that's how people got by. Because like TNA was real rough was real bad at this time, and it wasn't getting much better on this. So look, this is sad to see, because it's like, you look at Bray Wyatt and you're like, oh, he's so great, but then you're watching this match and he's in there with Dean Ambrose and they're throwing Christmas trees at each other, and
not even cool TNA barbed wire,
just regular Christmas. You know what? Here's a question
that are hanging from a rope for some reason.
Here's a question I have for you: would you have rather have seen a TNA style barbed wire Christmas tree or this?
See, it's one of those things where, the other way people talk about certain films being unrealistic or whatever, but a film is realistic in the world in which it is set. So a vampire in a vampire movie is realistic, because that's
that
the
makes
world
sense.
that it's set.
Yeah.
But if you were watching a vampire movie and then like Woody from Toy Story walked in, you'd be like, what the hell is like, objectively, talking toy is no more ridiculous than a vampire is, but within the world of the movie, it just doesn't fit. Yeah. So I don't think I can compare them, because something like a barbed wire Christmas tree in this extremely PG, extremely sanitized version of WWE it would just be bizarre to see. It just wouldn't fit.
So do you think if Mox showed up with a barbed wire Christmas tree, would that make more sense?
In this or in AEW?
Doesn't matter. Like in
AEW, I suspect that Mox has a barbed wire Christmas tree at home. Like not even part of the show. That's just what he has.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like I do think if WWE had have let him maybe do that here, that would have actually like added to this an awful lot. But then again, you have to be in there with someone who's wants to wrestle in barbed wire, and maybe Bray didn't want to. So, like,
and also
I'll put it this way. Sorry, real quick. One thing you have to understand when you're watching Bray Wyatt in WWE, he didn't really wrestle that much. That wasn't his. That isn't what got him over. When he was in NXT, wrestling didn't get him over. Sitting in the chair got him over. His promos got him over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't think it would have fit. Again, it's one of those things that it's if you're a wrestling fan, it's cool to be able to see the transition of these characters. You know how Ambrose would become unrecognizable as modern day Mox, and Wyatt even would go on to become unrecognizable with the the whole gimmick with the Fiend.
The Fiend, yeah.
And all that,
It's definitely.
But as a match on its own, it has some cool spots, but it's not great. But at the same time, I suppose it's not a pay-per-view or anything. It's just like a Raw, isn't it?
Just a Raw. It's just a Raw Christmas
There
Raw.
was no way they were letting a Christmas bloodbath happen on USA on Raw.
Unlike TNA, which did it often. Poor Abyss bled every year.
Oh yeah, sure. TNA's imagine over there licking rats when they weren't when they were bleeding on the Christmas trees.
So look, the next match that we have isn't really a match; it's more like a segment, and it's from Tribute to the Troops. Now, Tribute to the Troops was a show that WWE would do pretty much every year for the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't think they do it anymore.
We should specify for the American troops.
The American troops.
Don't go out and do it for the Taliban.
No. It would be for the US troops serving abroad, and they would like broadcast it, but it wouldn't really we'd never see it. It would never really be on. It would literally be for the Americans, So I think
it's not meant to be like a canon or anything.
No, it's completely non-canon. So Baghdad is when they'd normally do it, is where they do it, and
this one's in
Iraq
Afghanistan.
And Afghanistan, yeah, they seem to be the places that it'd either be in Iraq or Afghanistan. It wouldn't be anywhere else. They did do it, the last one or two were domestic, and they were in Texas, Orlando, and...
Is it it's not a thing anymore, is it?
It's not really a thing anymore. They still do something. So the last one it was like a special episode of SmackDown, but it wasn't like its own thing. So the last one was 2020, and that was in the Thunderdome.
Oh right. Oh, I think I vaguely remember that.
But it's not like they don't fly over anymore and pop a ring up in a war zone. And I to be fair, you have to hand it to them. Going over to an active war zone is wrestling in front of it.
Well, that was the two things about me that got me about this were, firstly, JB Elf, as we discussed earlier.
JB Elf
really annoyed me. Why is he JBL Kringle? It should have been JB Elf. But the other thing that bugged me was that so they were halfway through. Like you say, it's not really a match. It's kind of like a comedy set or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a promo, long promo.
Yeah. With a bit of physicality.
Yeah.
But halfway through it, the camera pans around. It's like, here we are in Afghanistan, and all I could think was, oh my god, 2005 Afghanistan, outside the walls of this compound, the people of Afghanistan are being subject to hellacious aerial bombardment from the US. You have hundreds of thousands of deaths. You have the collapse of a country. You have all these war crimes that America was committing. And at the same time, I was just thinking the perspective of an Afghan person, that those arseholes are in there behind their wall, with Mick Foley dressed up as Santa Claus, and I don't know, the the juxtaposition of it just really annoyed me for some reason. It
is very jarring. I mean, look, it's an American thing, you know. We don't have, like, our military is like 5,000 people, so we're a joke. Like, realistically, so it's just part of the culture.
And we're also neutral.
Yeah, we used to be. We used to be. That's really worrying that we're not. But particularly when we don't have a military, you know. But in America, it makes sense to an extent. I can see why, but I also can see why they don't do it anymore. Because I don't think this, if you were to wheel this out now, right? If you were to do this now and be like, we're live from Syria, it's like, oh God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my, like,
you know, oh God, what are you doing? You know,
do you know what I think probably killed this is probably the era of like the network and all that.
Yeah.
Like international fans being able to watch it, because like you say, from an American perspective, this is probably great. But as a European watching this, it seems incredibly crass and unempathetic and just.
It's look, as I said.
It seems like you're over destroying somebody else's country and also having a wee party for yourself. Like
when you're over in the States and they board, like you're getting it in a domestic flight, and listeners will know this who are in the States, they make a big thing out of the military, you know, where they're like, "Oh, military, thank you for your service, board first," kind of thing. And look, that's 100%. You know, it's a uniquely thing that we don't understand because we don't have that. You know, like I've never served in the military. I've shot a gun a couple of times, once when I was in Vegas. We don't have that in Ireland. We don't have that in Europe. A lot of like our military isn't. Again, it's like 5,000 people. You know,
imagine you were getting on the bus and some fella cuts in front of you going, "I'm in the defence forces." I give a shite.
Exactly.
Bin man does more for me than you. Fuck out of your way.
But that's it. Like the only thing you get is, like, you know, Christmas time, the military come home from their peacekeeping missions in Ireland. You're like, okay, well done, lads. You know. But
yeah. Although that's Irish battalions within the UN.
Exactly, but that's what I mean. That's the closest thing that we have to this.
Yeah.
Where, you know, it's not like families generationally go over.
But it's not like OTT goes out to Lebanon.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's just, everyone would be like, what are you doing here? This is so weird. Like, you know, this
is not the tone, lads. This is a very serious situation.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the tone of it caught up to WWE 15 years too late. Yeah. They're like,
I think it was a mixture of like, these things becoming available on the network, and like you say, them going down great in the US, but in Europe and other parts of the world, just very different.
And also as well, like, it's dangerous. It's legitimately dangerous. Like, I mean, imagine you're a wrestler or a band or whatever, and you're like going over and you could just be killed. You know, and that's why they started doing it in Texas and in the States and Virginia and North Carolina. It makes more sense in one sense. Like, again, I don't really know. We're sitting here in Ireland. Again, as I said, in theory, neutral with a tiny army. We don't know. So it's a weird relic of the past. Let's put it that way. And not killer spelled backwards. The actual relic of a time where you're like, okay, I remember this. This was. It always felt weird as well because you wouldn't see it. Like, okay, in Ireland at this time, you would not see this. It would just be referenced randomly, like, oh, we had to retrieve the troops. You're like, oh, that's a weird thing. And the only time you would see it, like, realistically, as an Irish person or an English person as well, would be in the games when it's like a level, and you're like, that's a weird thing. I wonder what that is. And you wouldn't know because you'd have no reference point to it, you know, as a kid.
Who'd be the funniest wrestler to be? Like you say, it's very dangerous to be killed in the Middle East. like if he was going to the tribute to the troops and they set off an IED that killed like the Iron Sheik, Sergeant Slaughter, during his Iraqi sympathizer phase.
Look, you remember Muhammad Hassan?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh Jesus.
So
poor guy.
That's the most obvious one. But look, WWE have always walked themselves into this where they don't do it anymore, which I'm kind of, on the one hand, I'm really glad they don't do it anymore, but it's also like, it really dates it where they're so, and it has to be a Vince, it had to be a Vince thing, where they're like, okay, this is happening, let's draw attention to it and make it a gimmick. You're like, oh, maybe don't do that, and they would. But I don't think this was done with malice. I think this was done with, as you said, crassness. But crassness because it's like, oh, what's wrong with this? This is totally fine. You're like, no, it's not. You know, it just comes off as weird.
There's also probably like a publicity, and like you said, this type of thing would play very well with American audiences.
100%.
Like,
yeah.
If they had told Vince ahead of time, I'd say he would have organized a tribute for the troops for the assassination of Osama bin Laden.
You don't remember this? So hold on.
God, after you take him out, I want Randy Orton to RKO his lifeless body.
Oh, you don't remember this? So what happened was it was a elimination. It was an Extreme Rules match. John Cena was in a steel cage match, and at the end of it, he cuts a whole promo on Osama bin Laden. That's what happened. I remember it. That happened. John Cena cut a promo on him.
John Cena, and again, I know I ask you this every time we talk about this, but John Cena, who was never legitimately in the military.
No.
He just decided.
He went, with Cena, it happened so gradually that everyone just kind of forgot. But he was like a rapper.
Yeah,
and then very, very slowly just melded into a Marine. Like,
because normally, like there's like a so they have that stolen valor thing out there. So normally when they have a wrestler who's like they talk about their military, there's at least some sort of legitimate background to it. Like they at the very least did boot camp, or they were in the National Guard. There's some sort of like a kernel of truth to it. But no, John Cena was just. Is it from those movies, The Marine? Is that what it is?
It kind of lined up around that time, yeah. But it happened so gradually. Like, he was still a rapper, but then would like, and it's one of the things that used to piss me off so much about people who would love John Cena, and I still I don't hate Cena anymore because he's not on TV. If he shows up again and wrestled, like winning the titles and won all that, it would generally drive me crazy. But
there's, and not to knock you off course, but there is a very strong rumor going around that he's getting one last run.
Yeah, that's okay because it will end eventually, but it would just be years of John Cena winning. But the reason, like, I would ask people, I'm like, what is his gimmick? I don't know what it is. And they'd be like, oh, he's a sure thing in unsure times. I'm like, that's not a gimmick. That's what it would be. They would always say, oh, he's a sure thing in unsure times. I'm like,
he's insurance.
What? What?
What are you talking about?
I'm like, is he a rapper? No. Is he a Marine? No. But why does he have the trappings of both? But isn't either. So
why is he coming out and saluting?
Yeah, it never made a lick of sense. And to this day, if someone's listening to this, I'm going to clip this and put this on YouTube. Please tell me what John Cena's gimmick was. Please tell me, because I do not know. I never knew what it was.
In the rap squadron.
No, because he literally, it happened where he was a rapper, then he became a face, and he would drop the rapper thing, and then slowly drift towards the militaristic thing. Then about halfway through the militaristic thing, start doing the Marine, really lean into it, but never drop the music, never change the gear. So he'd come out dressed as a rapper with the rap music playing, and then he'd salute, and it's like, I don't know what your gimmick is, Cena, but you're so big now at this point, it doesn't really matter. It's like Cody Rhodes.
Do you know what his gimmick was?
No, it's like Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is over because of his music. And at a certain point, it doesn't matter why he's over. He's just over.
His gimmick was American. So
I don't know.
Because it's the things that Americans associate with their country, like, you have we just talked a whole thing about how the tribute to the troops is like this thing that only works in America.
Is that what it is?
Hogan's gimmick was America, And now
Cody's Rhodes gimmick
walks out,
now is America.
Yeah, Cody walks out with a bloody Yankee flag on his back. Like,
folks, if that's true, and you're American, listen to this one, I appreciate it, but demand more. I mean, if your gimmick is like, here's the thing: Sheamus walks out and says he's Irish. It's like, all right, well done. You know,
good man.
Yeah.
We could tell.
You know,
we saw your skin tone. We knew you were one of us.
He has to work a little bit harder, working in the Irish language, and you know, so if that really was seen this gimmick where he's American, and that got him over, my God.
I think that
I'm lost for words.
Like all the vaguely militaristic stuff, you know, the like the good guy triumphing. That's what the gimmick was. Even rap music. Like, rap music's an American thing. Like,
but don't get me wrong. Like, look, I really like the American Badass. That was the most American thing ever. That was awesome.
Yeah, but the Undertaker always had that, even when he was the dead man. Remember?
Yeah, but
remember one of the first ever things like promos of the Undertaker was when they were. Do you remember that arena they used to have in New York where they would do the Raw, like the first run of Raw?
Yes.
I can't remember what the name it was. It was a really famous arena where they did Raw every week. And the first time the Undertaker came out in it, he did one of his dead man promos. And then out of the blue, he opened up his jacket. And the inseam of his jacket was a Confederate flag. In New York as well. The wrong side of the border there, boy.
Oh, God. That's wild. That's wild. So, look, this I don't think would fly nowadays. It is a relic of the past. But, yeah. Next match. Our second military Miracle on 34th Street. Randy Orton versus David Otunga.
Well, so Orton was legitimately in the military, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he deserted.
He got a dishonorable
discharge for deserting. So,
the other thing about this, and it's so weird how these two tie together. Like earlier, we were talking about how it's so strange how Cena had a military gimmick where normally there needs to be a kernel of truth to that.
Sorry, he didn't desert. He bad conduct discharge.
But he was there at some stage.
He was, yeah.
Otunga in this, they keep talking about a lawyer. I'm like, what? A lawyer?
Yeah, he's a lawyer, yeah.
Dude passed the bar at like Harvard Law.
Yeah, he's a legitimate lawyer, yeah.
How do you go through Harvard Law and pass the bar and then go, do you know what I'm going to do? Could be a wrestler.
You know who he's married to? Or was married to?
Don't. What?
Jennifer Hudson.
Then another guy who we're going to sit here and make fun of and then realize, no, he's winning.
Yeah, he was set, you know, but basically, like, he's just one of those cast-offs from the original NXT, and he was in the Nexus. But never...
Well, he's another one of these guys from that time period. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah, like, the Nexus was, like, the biggest thing ever. And Cena... Like, you know what we're doing? We're going to do a Nexus arc at some point, because that needs to be talked about. That's a whole thing in and of itself.
Are they the ones that they killed by putting them in a box with Ohio Valley Wrestling?
No, that was the Spirit Squad. No, basically the Nexus was the NWO in 2010. But
didn't Bryan Danielson get fired for choking?
Yeah, that was part of that, exactly. And what happened was there was a match and then Cena beat every single one of them by himself.
Oh my God.
And everyone was like, please don't do that. And there you go. So we will look into that because that is a story. Is
it, and I can't say it because, like I say, I haven't seen this era, but is it an over-exaggeration to say that this era of WWE is as bad as the latter-day WCW era that we covered?
No, because this was limping on. This was never going to die.
But from a fan's perspective, like, is it?
Yeah, no, there was really nothing to hang on to. Like, it's why TNA became so big, because that's all they had. And this was the void that NXT filled, and people were like, oh, this is what we wanted for years. And then Vince was like, no, this is changing. And Tony Khan stepped in and made AEW. Basically, if you want to mark what started a real demand for, like, a real company, it's like 2012 to 2015 WWE is horrendously bad. Horrendously bad. With some bright spots. The Daniel Bryan run, CM Punk's title reign, Bray Wyatt here and there, The Shield. You know, there was good stuff in it, but when it was bad, it was real bad, and it was very often just real bad.
Well, let me ask you about the other guy in this match, because the match itself is fine. It's not special. It's grand. Like the two of them batter each other around the place. It's mostly Orton kind of dishing it out. There's a wee bit of fight back, but it's mainly it's an Orton beat down. There's even like interference, and Orton still wins.
But Orton would win, yeah.
So my question, because like there's not a whole pile to talk about the match, my question is, Randy Orton, what is your take on him? Because for me, like I see people putting him in their all-time legends list. I think he is actively bad.
So here's the thing about Randy Orton, right? This is the worst.
Wouldn't be in my top 200.
No, this is the worst time to watch Randy Orton. And I would say that needs to be a sliding scale. If Randy Orton's in there with somebody who wants to work, he's going to work. The match is going to be unreal, right? If he's in there with somebody who doesn't want to work, the match is going to be real bad. Or someone who can't work. So David Otunga, not the best worker in the world. The match was bad. If he was in there with Cena, he'd have the same match with Cena hundreds of times, and he did. It just, with Randy Orton, if he wants to have a great match, he'll have one of the best matches on the card. If he doesn't, he won't. So that's a hard question. He's not someone that would go in and give it all to have a 5-star classic or something like that. Because he's like, I'm getting paid either way. It doesn't matter. Which I suppose is why he's still wrestling now. And a lot of the others aren't. So,
I mean, yeah, it worked out for him. I've never understood. I mean, I've never liked him, but I've never understood people have him in the like greatest of all time discussion.
I can see that, but it's like it depends where he is. You know, if you throw him in there with Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan's going, he's going to have a phenomenal match. You throw him in there.
You throw me in with
no,
Daniel
but it's
Bryan.
No, okay, the match he had with Edge, the greatest wrestling match of all time, the greatest match ever, or whatever it was called. That was a good match, not the greatest wrestling match of all time, not by a long shot, but it was a really good match because they went out to do that. Randy Orton just figured out, if I do the bare minimum, I'm getting paid, and that's what happened.
I mean, that's great for him, but like, as a fan, it's
but
it
here's the
doesn't do
thing,
much for me.
It didn't matter because all that mattered was Cena always won. That was the meme. Cena wins, lol. You know, so it didn't matter. It didn't matter who was. Well, no, I mean, like again, if Orton went in there with Cena, Cena was winning. You know, it didn't matter what he did.
I mean, I think part of what kept him over for so long was the
RKO. Yeah, that's fair. I'll give you that one as well. But look, the next match again is my kind of case in point here. It's Alberto Del Rio, which that's an episode in and of itself.
Speak of the devil versus
being defeated by Super Cena in his most Super Cena form. I didn't enjoy this match because I remember this match. I remember seeing a wrestling like this. It was very bad. But Mick Foley came out. You know, Mick Foley makes, out of all the Santas we've seen, and we've come full circle, right? Mick Foley is the best Santa.
I couldn't work out if it was him or not at the time.
No,
he grew a legitimate beard for us.
Yeah, but he does Mr. Socko.
Yeah. No, that was when I was like, oh yes, it's obviously Mick. But no, Santa came out, and because he's wearing the full Santa gear, but he doesn't have one of those.
No, he has a real beard. Yeah,
real beard. So I was like, is it Mick? And then he was like, he was walking like Mick, and I was like, why is that Santa Claus doing a Mankind impression? and then he's the Socko. I was like, all right, it's Mick.
Why is he walking like somebody who's thrown off a Hell in a Cell? Oh my God, it's Mick Foley.
Well, because the reason he was walking like that, the reason Cena and Del Rio, who's another one of these guys who I just had no idea who was.
Oh, wait, we'll get into it at some point.
The reason they were fighting was because earlier in the show, Del Rio ran Santa over with his car. Again, shoot real life Santa. Del Rio ran him over, and Santa was stretchered out of the building. And then Cena came out to be like, hey, you can't run over Santa with your car. I'm going to fight you now. And that was the basis for this match. The only note I have, I'm going to read it out verbatim. Cena-ing all over the place.
Yeah. Cena wins, lol.
Yeah,
so look, for me, it's, anytime I see Cena at this point, it's just darkness. It's not good. It was after the summer of Punk, which is like CM Punk's fantastic run in WWE, where he left with the title and came back. But there was very few bright spots at this point. And look, it's cool it's on the list, but my God, if I never see any of those Cena matches again.
But we talk, again, going right back to what we said at the start.
They're time capsules.
These give a snapshot of what this particular time was like. And like you say, 2012 WWE, Cena wins, lol. Yeah,
look, and if there's probably some people listening to this who grew up, Cena was your first guy, your first main guy who was over, you probably love him. I don't. I was doing the international desk at this time. I have shows from this time, and there's a reason I don't put them up, because they're just me complaining about how bad the product is. So yeah, that's not fun.
One of the so again, we're of a slightly different generation. It's actually a really good point you made there about people who grew up with Cena. So we're the Cena wins, lol, sarcastically generation. But there is a generation out there that is Cena wins, lol, I love it. Yeah. One of the best wrestlers in Ireland today is a wrestler called Raven Creed. She's a wrestler from Cork. I was lucky enough to train with her for a wee while, but when I was training with her, she was only 19, but by that stage she'd already been wrestling for 5 years. She was amazing. She's genuinely one of the best wrestlers in the country. She wrestles a really good, a hard hitting kind of style, but she ties in a lot of technical stuff. She's really good. And if you ask her who her favorite wrestler is, I was shocked. John Cena.
But here's the thing,
because that's the age she was.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes an awful lot of sense. But look, guys, if you enjoyed the show, thank you so much. The entire playlist is on YouTube. We're going to link it in our social media. It's underneath this video, and any video that we have, we will link it as well. If there's anything you want to comment, please do. We always read the comments. And if you have any feedback as well, you can also let us know on the social media. Or you can go over to Patreon and give us a Christmas gift of some money. Maybe the Rent-A-Tier, which is tenor spelled backwards. And Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we finish up for this evening?
No, have yourselves a very Merry Christmas. Peace, goodwill to mankind, all the rest. Nulla Con Div.
And I will echo those words as well. Folks, thank you so much for spending your Christmas Eve, or your Christmas Day, or your Stephen's Day, or Boxing Day, or whatever you celebrate, because we do appreciate it. And look, the list is up underneath this video. It's also up on our social media. So if you want to have a laugh and go through these WWE time capsules like we did, you totally can. And we'll be back next week to talk about something else here on the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who genuinely don't hate wrestling. This is the Wrestling Podcast. Sorry, this is the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. Nerd to Know Media, the Wrestling Rewind, and of course, the True Penny channel. We'll talk to you in the next one. Bye, guys.
I don't know what the goddamn rules of a Santa match are.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.